I guess I didn't swag enough. Stupid fruity pebble chain. We bag enough. I guess I didn't swag enough. Stupid fruity pebble chain. We bag enough. Poppin' tan model BC couldn't brag 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 enough. I guess I didn't swag enough. Stupid fruity pebble chain.
And welcome to the 300th episode of the Horizon Roundtable. I am Bob McDonald, and John Parker, who you would normally find on Twitter at Horizon John, is not here. Bummer. But you can find us on the web at horizonroundtable.com. You can find links to all of our socials and sites where podcasts are available at horizonroundtable.com/subscribe. Become a patron, patreon.com/horizonroundtable. And of course, you can donate to us at horizonroundtable.com. Good to know, because we're going to be kicking off our preview week donation drive here very shortly, so be on the lookout for that. Before we get started, guys, we have new intro music. Dug into the crates for this one. A former follower of me on Twitter, Microwave Red, he has a song, Swag Enough, so that is going to be the new song. Produced by Sonny Collins. We'll have the full song will be at the end of this episode. If you don't want to wait that long, there will be a link to the YouTube video in the episode description. So, I'm going to guess... You don't have to guess who exactly is on this episode. I had to guess who wasn't going to be on this episode.
You just didn't think it was going to be your co-host.
All right, so let's get the introductions out of the way. We're going to start with Kyle Rossi, because he is the only active member of the Horizon Roundtable staff. So welcome, Kyle Rossi.
Hey, glad to be here. Good evening, everybody, or morning or afternoon if you're listening to this later, which I don't know what you're doing this evening, but maybe. I don't know.
So Kyle joined us in 21. I think it was literally 2 days after we interviewed Chris Killsmeyer, and the rest is history.
Well, yeah, well, no, because you had Maria Marquesano on, like, I think the week before that or 2 weeks before that. I might be wrong about that. That was the first episode I ever listened to was the Maria Marquesano one, and you had Killsmeyer on right after that. And like I kind of like my origin story is basically like I'd started just tweeting about Cleveland State. You guys kind of found me and guilted me into it, basically, and here I am, 4 years later.
Yes, we did, and now you can never leave. I mean, you can leave. Obviously, we have a whole group of people who left, and we're going to introduce them now.
That's not what the guys with the large guns on my porch say.
But enough about John Durda. And maybe Phil. I don't know. Phil's a sad soul, so probably not. All right, so now that we've introduced you, let's talk about. I got to introduce Jimmy Lemke, because he's the one who started this whole thing with that prototype thing, and then you're going to do a bunch of stuff, and then we ended up just doing the podcast 2 years later.
Yeah, you guys, you can all blame me. It's my fault that.
Well, no, we can. You know who we can blame? We can blame Damian Bowman. Wow. Remember Damian Bowman, Jimmy?
I do remember.
I know some of you do.
Yeah. Is this where we start counting references that most of us don't understand?
Oh, no. I was actually going to explain this reference, Matt. Damian Bowman was the editor-in-chief, of what was Campus Press Box, which is where I wrote, the place I wrote for. And he also had a podcast network called 4lights.fm. And they had a bunch of different podcasts, and I was covering Cleveland State at the time. Jimmy still had Panther U at the time. And so we kind of pitched Damien the idea of creating this podcast, the Horizon Roundtable. And well, the rest is history.
He's like, do people really want to listen to that? And we're like, no, but we want to talk about it.
Goddamn right. So let's introduce the other two, because I'm doing this in kind of chronological order of the introduction. So we're going to start with you, Matt, and you, Karic. So Matt Dudek and Karic Jones were our first guests. And we had you guys come on for the Metro series. So Matt, welcome, and Karic, welcome.
Hello there, everybody. Karic, I don't know if your team has won since we came on this podcast to talk about it.
I don't think they have.
So,
But you care a little bit less now. You see the error in your ways, I think.
I don't. I mean, I hope they win, but I don't. It's whatever.
yeah. So, speaking of chronological, because when we created the website horizonroundtable.com, Kara came on as one of our writers, and Matt actually took over. Both Matt and Karic were guest hosts, but Matt became more than that around October of 2019 when he took over for Jimmy as co-host. So that's that chronological order. Also want to introduce Jim Sarow. Welcome, Jim.
Hey, Bob. Thanks for having me back. I am just learning that this is the 300th episode of the Rise Zone podcast. I actually thought I was here today to audition for the co-host role now that John's not doing it anymore.
Be careful what you wish for, sir. Jim, of course, you also filled in as guest host a couple of times as well. And I'd like to point out that you also did the previews for Green Bay during preview week, the Green Bay men. I think you did it 2 years in a row, if I'm not mistaken.
I did, and I took note that I wasn't invited back for a third year, so I guess my
Well, it's because we had Eric. We had Eric Fisher. So
yeah, but really, does he count?
Yeah, he does.
I will say, Jim runs the most consistent thing that I enjoy watching as a Horizon League fan. I love Jim's pick and rolls after games. Jim, don't stop those.
Never. Don't do that. By the way, I did. Had I remembered that, I would have asked you, because I actually ran into Jim in Indy this year, and it didn't occur to me like, dude, we should do a pick and roll with me as like a poking my head in and say hello everybody. But I did not.
I told you I like the pick and rolls. That doesn't involve you.
Fine.
Yeah, if you were on them, the quality would degrade significantly.
Gee, thanks, guys. I also want to introduce Horizon Boy. Welcome, Horizon Boy.
Thanks, everyone, for having me back on. I appreciate it, Bob.
The Horizon Boy has been, he's been, I don't want to say fringe character, but you've definitely been an important character in the history of this podcast, for sure.
You're good connective tissue for the Horizon cinematic universe.
Yes, you are.
I lurk somewhere in the depths of anonymity under Horizon Boy, so it's fun to peek out whenever I get a chance.
Yes, absolutely. And last but certainly not least, because I have not we haven't had him on for a while, but it's Kyle Craven. So Kyle Craven, of course, was he ran Norris Report. He was a big part of a lot of the stuff that we did, from about 2019 to about 2022, at least.
I think pull it in by one more year on either side. It was probably it was like middle of the 2018 season, and it's like into the first year, the first COVID season.
Yeah,
was probably when I pieced out of just life basically online. Yeah. So, and don't ask me any questions about the current NKU team because I have no idea.
Well, that's okay. I don't either.
We should all just
I don't know if Sam Vincent's going to be back. I have no freaking clue.
We should just ask Darren Horn for his input. He loves this podcast.
Clearly, he loves it in secret.
Yeah. Is he? I'm assuming he's still never been on.
He has still never been on. And
shout out that guy.
Not for lack of trying. Across at least
two
different SIDs.
Used to work with Crean. I'm not a big fan of
Yeah. Funny enough, because we actually had Dizzy Payton, the baseball coach for NKU. We've had him on. We've had an NKU coach on this podcast. And yet,
if you're gonna be standoffish like that, then you better at least like have made the Sweet 16 by now. You know what I mean? But if you're gonna go what is it? The only thing I do know about the team, they went 18-17 last year. If you're going to be that like mediocre, you could at least go on a freaking podcast about your conference.
Look, if Greg Campy can come on with us after beating
multiple
Kentucky,
times, man.
Yeah, that's crazy.
I would like to.
Greg Campy understands how to like market his program.
Yeah, he
Mike
does.
Davis would like a word about having to talk to the press and sucking.
Yeah, we never had Mike Davis. We got Monty on real quick.
The whole podcast with Mike Davis been like, hey, remember how like your entire head coaching career started at like the absolute tippy top and then was just a slow slide down to the bottom.
That golf outing I went to talk with him, and then had to subsequently go to the arena the next morning for practice because he didn't want to talk to me on a golf course. That was like 8 hours of my day. I wish I could get back.
Something tells me there were way more than 8 hours of that.
About 12 and a half, and it was was spent with some fun alumni. But I got to know all about AD's chocolate marketing.
Oh, well, there you go. Great. Did we ever get any chocolate from him, by the way? I don't remember that.
It was like $50 a bar.
Karic, do you have a light up basketball? Did
Yeah!
you sell those too?
He would have had to give it to me. I'm not paying him.
So, by the way, for as many coaches as we had, do you guys know who the first?
Sorry,
Karic, go ahead.
You wanted AD to give you the basketball. Does he know
happening.
how to do that?
Fair enough. Fair enough. Well played.
Sorry, it took me a minute to come up with that joke. I had to look it up on Google. Sorry.
Are we going to talk about
GPT? How do I make fun
when me and Kyle did a podcast and I pissed off half of his fan base on accident?
Oh my God! Yes, I think that's how Kyle came to be.
Actually,
the genesis of Kyle Craven on this podcast.
Yeah, I did mention that to Bob when he asked me to come on. First of all, I just want to say, real quick, in case I don't get a chance to say it, I appreciate the 3 to 4 years that I kind of worked with you guys. Obviously we kind of had our own things, but still a contributor and everything like that. It was, I don't know, it was a time period of my life where I really, 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 really needed some way to express creativity, and you guys gave me that, and I really appreciate it. But to the story you're talking about, it came to my attention. Actually, I think maybe one of the first times I heard about you guys. I think I had heard about you a little bit before, but we're kind of on our own island out here in Northern Kentucky. And I'd heard about it because it was the game where we played Detroit, and our fans were heckling Mike Davis real bad. And something happened with Antoine Davis where he lost his shoe or something. And
that was like a few episodes that was like a few weeks, that was during the regular season. This was during the tournament, because remember,
that's right,
Kyle, because remember, Matt and Karic took over the podcast for an episode because because Cleveland State and Milwaukee were so fucking terrible in 2019 that Jimmy and I had banished ourselves. They didn't even make the tournament, so Jimmy and I had banished ourselves. So we had Matt and Karic take over.
Well, so what was the genesis of that? How did that conversation evolve? Things I clearly I don't.
It was the episode, and I think I remember. I think Karic is the one who was I think it was Karic who insinuated the racism that was coming from the NKU side. We still have that 1-star review from that one NKU fan on Apple Podcasts because of that.
Well, I think in the history of this podcast, if you want someone who's going to talk out their ass, I'm probably your go-to person.
Oh, that is a well-defended category. I think you've lost a few of those.
I think we're both here then, Karic, to eat crow a little bit, because I got fired up from that. Obviously, you see that and you're you want to defend where you're from or whatever, but after 5 years of reflection, 4 years, whatever it was of reflection, I probably wouldn't have gone on the podcast to defend Northern Kentucky. Just saying. So I don't know. I don't obviously you're not going to sit here and say that every single person in Northern Kentucky is racist, but I don't know. I definitely wouldn't take an hour out of my day to defend the whole region anymore. I'll say that.
Fair enough.
Wait, there was a point where we thought that there was no racism in the NKU fan base?
There was a point where I was willing to try to make that claim, and that doesn't exist within me anymore.
Oh,
for
man,
sure.
dude, from the jump, the thing that was so surprising to me was how willing a few people were, because that first game. Well, what did you guys join? Was it 2016?
Yeah, I think it was 20. Something like that.
Anyway,
I think it was.
Yeah.
15.
Yeah, it was like the 15-16 season or something.
Yeah.
And when you guys joined, the first game you played in Milwaukee was like, I think we had, I think there were some like 4,000 fans there, and NKU maybe brought like 300, but like I was blown away at just how like brazen some of those people were. Like you're on the road and there's only like 10 people in this whole like. There's only, like, we can obviously see which one is you. Well, and like, you think you're using coded language, but we all know the codes. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you guys went to college. Like, everyone who's at a college basketball game like that pretty much went to college. Everyone knows what to look for. I'll say this. I don't want people to get the impression that, like, you go to an NKU game and, like, there's people in clans robes in the
no.
But I know you well enough to know that that's not a thing.
I was just shocked that there were a couple people who were comfortable enough to like be like.
You'll hear epithets. You'll hear stuff from even players' parents that is inappropriate. Or at least back sorry, I should say at least back when I was covering.
Well, you should meet some of the former Oakland players' parents, specifically one from Holt, Michigan.
And
I
think
for the record, I had no idea that this is going in this direction, but go nuts, guys.
I'll just say this so we can move on from the NKU stuff. I just wanted to point out, like, I think the thing that really jaded me with all of it at the end of the day was like, if you see, and I get it that Drew McDonald like grew up in Northern Kentucky, he's like a homegrown kid, whatever. But Marquez Warwick was from Lexington. It's not that much further away. Like his family was just involved. Just look at how the marketing was and the fan treatment was between Drew McDonald versus Marquez Warwick. When Marquez Warwick, like, I don't know, I'm not going to go into like who's better, whatever. I'm just saying. By
the way, shout out to his mom because she still follows us and
amazing.
She is awesome. Amazing. I met her in in 23.
She's one of the greatest people I've ever met.
Oh my God, yeah,
she's so great. But yeah, I mean, just look at the way. I guess I would just say, like, look at how one person was elevated in their 4 years versus the other person, and that's all. I'll just leave it at.
Yeah.
I never even thought of it because I do look at the marketing material for a lot of the schools, and it never even occurred to me.
Wait, Cleveland State has marketing material?
Yeah, no, seriously. Like, I'm talking about like the online presence,
their online presence ain't shit either. So
I will talk about when I talk to like Milwaukee fans.
I'm not bitter or anything that they don't retweet any of our crap, but
well, for me, like
no comment.
I
got lots of comments.
I will often talk to like Milwaukee fans, and I'll talk about like different players, different kinds of families of players. And I'll bring up that, like, with a lot of players, like, there's people who I call program guys. Now, in the era of NIL, the program guy is going to be a lot rarer because who's going to stay around at a school for 4 years or 3 or 4 years and stick around. But like the program guy being like somebody who that if you bump into them and you talk to them about the program 3, 4, 5 years after they're gone, they're still plugged in because they still care deeply about it. And, we've had a lot of program guys.
Yeah.
Or like people who will be very active in it. And I always assumed that like Marquez Warwick would be like one of like the premier program guys for Northern Kentucky.
Well, yeah. I mean, obviously.
So I like, to me, like,
and he could be, and I don't think there's anything necessarily, like I said, it's never malicious. I just think it's undertones. Those are the differences. And like I said, if you are comfortable, if you grew up in the suburbs, whatever, and you come to Northern Kentucky, like, you might not even notice it. But if you really like kind of think about it, and then you dig a little deeper into like look at like demographics and statistics, stuff like that, just go look at the demographic makeup of the 3 counties that sit across from Cincinnati versus the Cincinnati, like, Hamilton County demographic makeup, and you'll kind of get your idea of like why it might be like that. And again, I'm not saying that it's anything overt or intentional. It's just undertones. You know what I mean?
Sure. You know, I get it.
Just trying to cover my ass there.
I was gonna like pivot to something else. I'm just gonna, I don't know.
Yeah, sorry. I totally can't be moved. How about Horizon?
To be fair, that is a topic that should get talked about in a podcast, because like if we're not going to talk about it, who's ever going to talk about it?
Because maybe not. You are absolutely. You know what? You are absolutely correct, and you know,
maybe not like the episode 300 of like the hey, let's have a party to celebrate the fact that this ridiculous podcast lasted 300 episodes so far.
No way, nothing says celebrate racism.
Wait a minute. How about? Now I can pivot. Like, how the fuck am I the one that's been the common, thread on this entire 300 span run? How did I become that guy?
I think
it's the part where you, Jimmy.
I think it's the part where you have pretty much fronted a lot of it. I think that's where you became the glue guy to it.
Hey, John offered to buy it from you, man. So don't even go there.
No. The Horizon. Oh, and what would have happened then, Kyle? What would happen? I think we already know the ending of that movie. Like half of everybody would have left, and it would have been like, a private equity group like buying whatever the hell they're gonna buy now. They got the brand, but they don't have shit else. I will say this though. I will say this. There were certain points in my own personal history that this podcast probably saved my fucking sanity.
Mm-hmm.
You guys know, probably specifically from about beginning of October of 2018 till probably about the end of 2019.
I know that those were dates.
Yeah. So those were the dates that I was spending every other week commuting from the Akron area to Indiana. Just about every other weekend.
Oh yeah, that time, yeah.
Yeah, that time. So so that was fun. Yeah. So and during that point in time, we started a new fucking website, and that entire summer of 2019 happened. That was fun. When Cleveland State fired Dennis Felton, and then had to scramble around.
Wow, was that long ago already?
Yes, it was nearly 6 years ago, dude. Oh my god. That was insane. By the way, I would like to point out the fact that Dennis Felton was the first coach we interviewed.
Was he the only coach you interviewed?
No, he was the first coach. He obviously many more coaches preceded him.
Okay, but Bob, in retrospect, were we interviewing him, or was he interviewing us for if he needed to fill his spots on a heist?
Oh, maybe. I don't know.
Also, did you find out what brand of spray here he uses? Because I could probably use some of that.
Oh my god.
Oh my god. I don't know. I mean, if somebody wants to hit him up at Providence and ask that now. I still can't believe I still can't believe.
Yeah, is that where he popped up? Was Providence now?
Yeah, well, no, he started at Fordham, and he wasn't there very long because nobody stays that long at Fordham. And then he went to George Mason, and that's where Kim English was. And then when Kim English got the Providence job, he went with Kim English. So
you get a sign.
So that's what happened. So that's okay. Dennis Gates was a much better coach anyway.
All right, but hold on, Bob. I'm going to try to play co-host here for a minute. I've done that once in my life with you.
Sure.
You're pretty close to getting to, I think, what's genuinely one of the epitomes of Horizon Roundtable time now. Like if we're commemorating 300.
The height of our superpowers is basically what you're saying.
Well, yes. you talked about 2019, which gets us real close to the 2020 season, the COVID season, and honestly, that's when Horizon Roundtable really got its footing was during COVID because our asses were in the building.
Yes, we were. So actually, this was the year. So remember, Matt, 2020 was when they were. I think it was the first year they were in Indianapolis. We had Craven was actually at Indy for us. And Kyle, I don't believe I have ever told you this story, but getting you a pass for Indy required a 20-minute conversation with Dan Gliot.
Oh, I'm sure it did.
I mean, I'm like, oh, and yeah. So yeah, that was fun.
Yeah, I'm sure he had a list of all the different tweets that should disqualify me from being on there, and that's my biggest regret with all of it is just using my own personal not just I should have just been like Horizon Boy and just kind of hid behind anonymity or whatever the word is. I can't say it.
Anonymity.
Yeah, that.
But
and
Horizon
also,
Boy's a fan of everybody.
he is a fan of
Horizon
everyone.
Boy.
So yeah, so that's true. Now, Matt, also remember this was the time, right? Because this is right before COVID. Remember, this was the time you were actually not co-hosting. You were actually going on tour.
Yeah, I was touring. I was going.
He was touring with an Irish band, and then like literally 2 days after the actually not even 2 days. It was the day after the finals of the tournament. It was they had basically everything had basically they had everything was slowly but surely shut down. And like a day later, we found out that Chris Kilsmeyer had gotten COVID. So then the shit got real then. And then everybody,
can I tell a story from that Horizon League
oh
tournament?
yes. Yeah.
So you're right. I had just picked up a national tour. I was going out. I was in New Jersey, and I remember this. I had just flown out to New Jersey. And Oakland played that night.
Yeah.
And I'm almost positive these dates and things line up correctly. They played that night, and Trey Maddox did not play because he was sick.
Oh.
Which was true. That was not a lie. And then he ended up transferring a couple days. Trey Maddox's dad called me. I remember being in the hotel room on my tour, taking a call from Trey Maddox's dad, which was not the first time. Him and Rashad's dad used to call me all the time. By the way, shout out for anyone still listening to this. Since it's the 300th episode, I'll finally tell the answer. It sticks in Greg Campy's craw that I knew the Rashad story and broke the Rashad story. It did not come from Rashad's dad, although he was in my ear the whole time through the process. It was actually one of Brad Brechting's best friends DMing me, dropping me the info that Rashad was leaving Detroit to drive up to Cleveland and was going to be eligible the next night. So there it is. Take it up with Brad. He's off doing the concrete business of his family.
Wow. Did not see that coming.
Yeah, I know that this still bothers Greg because he will he will say things like, if this gets out like the Rashad story, and he says that to this day when threatening his team and the staff.
A lot of good it did.
Well, yeah, but like when you think about it, that Brad Brechting's buddy had to hear it from.
Say that
Brad
5 times fast, Brad Brechting's buddy.
Yeah, right.
And hold on, I'm gonna tie this back together one more time, just as we're reminiscing on things. I got the news, and I had to tell somebody, and I was driving home. It was like 10:30 at night, and I had to tell somebody right away. You know who I called, Bob? And Karic, you're gonna love this. I hope you're still listening. You know who I called?
Tony Jones.
Hell no. Tony Jones. You mean Tony Paul?
Oh.
No, I was gonna say Tony Jones.
My good friend. God rest his soul.
That's the one, Karic.
Oh shit!
Reg?
Really?
That's tampons are magic.
Oh man.
That's who I called because I needed to tell somebody.
Oh man. Yeah.
The access that you can get with these programs is completely unlike anything that you can get at any high major, and I think that's the special part about being a fan of like Horizon League school is like I could talk to any of the coaches, and I don't even like do like the covering anymore. I'll talk to coaches, I'll talk to assistants, I'll talk to every now and then I'll talk to players from other teams, but like the level of access you get is just fantastic.
Oh, absolutely. I mean,
but yeah, I'm going to tell you, like, the thing that's crazy with me is like you go to any of these schools, and like especially this past year, I'd go to Northern Kentucky and Lindsey Duval got me Skyline. I'd go to Youngstown State that brought me donuts. And it's like, I don't even do anything for you. I cover Cleveland State. I talk about you incidentally in, the scope of doing that. But it's fantastic, man. I went to Penn State for undergraduate. I could I can cover Penn State women's basketball for 20 years and not get what I get from these other conference schools in the Horizon League. It's fantastic, like Jimmy said.
Kyle, do you cover Cleveland State women? I thought you're just out there dragging girls' names through the mud and pissing off.
Mickey Purdue.
What the fuck was that all about? I'm still trying to figure out what that was all about. By the way, don't tell any of them they're still patrons. I still want their $2 a month.
No, I mean, I agree. Like the access that I got when I was there, and like, having been good friends with CB for, up until probably 2 years after undergrad. I mean, I still talk with Ackerman all the time because he works in schools, so I see him. Just the stuff when like Bakari was there, because he just let any and everyone in. So
maybe a little too much there, Karic.
Oh yeah, no. My best story from covering U of D is Jermaine Jackson calling me multiple times, being like, "You can't write that." And it's like, my friend, I can write whatever I want.
Did Bakari ever tell you to suck his dick, or is that only reserved for teammates?
He only met me 2 or 3 times, and he's such a big dude. He would like dab me up, and I'd be uncomfortable. And then like one time, Josh McFarley's like, "Coach, leave him alone. We like him." No, but like what's cool now, like if you guys remember Chris Jenkins, he's the coach at UD Jesuit, the big powerhouse.
Really? The high school?
So Donley, the coach, took the AD job, and Chris is back from playing overseas, and he's the coach. I texted him. He's like, "Yeah, man,
well,
it's
shit,
awesome."
Karic, I guess this means we should get a Detroit Mercy writer now.
Isn't Chris Jenkins like 25?
Chris Jenkins is a year younger than me. He's 30.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Well, 2 years.
Chris Jenkins, like Villanova Chris Jenkins?
What? Which one?
Wait, am I crazy? Are we talking about the same? Are you talking
about
the same
he's not talking about Nova Chris Jenkins.
Okay.
No, the Chris Jenkins that called Oakland little brother, and it all went down from there. That Chris.
Got it. Okay, my bad. I thought the Villanova Chris Jenkins had some Horizon League origin story that I didn't know about.
No, so
yeah,
went to the feeder school to U of D, and then he went to Colorado for a year, came back, it was a big thing. Matt will remember, it was a big thing. They got him eligible for the Oakland game, and he came out and did really well, but they still lost. And then he went on my radio show when I was an undergrad and proceeded to call Oakland little brother.
Oh, God.
Multiple times.
That worked out real well, didn't it?
Campy texted me, and he's like, "Did you get him to say that?" And I was like, "No." And then because I remember Matt texted me to tell me I was going to, Campy was going to talk about me on the radio show. And then when Campy saw me, he goes, "What was he thinking?" He goes, "I like the kid. He's a good dude, but like, why would he do that to him?"
The mother of all billboard material.
Right.
That is amazing. Oh my God. So Matt, wait, you were talking about Trey Maddox's dad. I wanted to circle back to that.
Yeah, what about it? Just that.
There was after the tournament game, and Trey Maddox got sick.
And it was just, more remembering like how some of these parents reach out. Some of the parent connection with these kids, and just the connection to information. All this, even a couple days ago, not that anyone's following the current Horizon stuff, but Isaiah Jones left Oakland. He gave Griffin Beers the story, which I thought was super cool. But like, our media means something here, in a way that's kind of neat, and Jimmy was kind of referencing this too, where he's not even really covering, but he can sit here and talk to a coach, he can talk to an assistant, and we end up learning a lot of information. We're not Tony Paul getting acting as Greg Campy's mouthpiece, but like we get a lot of good stuff. And that's
I do want to point out that like the Horizon League, because of the round table and because of like the work that like each of you guys have done, the Horizon League has a reputation across the country of being the best covered mid-major conference. You can even find that on like the Valley's the Valley fan forum. Like they always say like, why can't we have like a Horizon roundtable for the Missouri Valley? And they've tried to do it. They've tried to do it.
Yeah,
and the Atlantic 10 has had people try to do it, but like for whatever reason they're not going to do it. And I think now that the Horizon League's pretty much down to like this core group, because I don't really see any of us ever any of us really like looking to dip anytime soon, unless there's like a massive shakeup in college basketball. Like now that there's like this core, I think that we've set the bar very high. Like you guys specifically have set the bar very high, and
I keep saying, man, you want the good shit, you come to us.
I mean, I will have fans of like schools on like the West Coast who will know like the Horizon Roundtable, just not even because they like look at the content a lot, but that they like check it out once or twice and they're like, holy crap, this mid-major conference is getting covered like on a level that that no conference is getting.
And not only that, Jimmy, I want to tag on to that because this shout out doesn't go often enough. You're 100% right. And as we've gotten that leverage and we continue to kind of up it, what Kyle is specifically bringing on the women's side, and we're starting to get women's writers, we're seeing almost every women's team getting into that echelon. And you don't even see that at some high majors. So like, Kyle, that's a big shout out to you and what you're building there. And like, it's just, it's motivating, I think, for people. And it's really cool.
Also, thanks, Mac. I was counting to gas me up. Appreciate it.
on the women's side, it has positively affected recruiting for every school in the conference. I'm not kidding you at all.
Yeah, I mean, it pretty much made Maddie Skorupski leave Oakland, but she wanted to keep the Horizon coverage, so she went to Green Bay. Like, it makes sense.
Yeah, and Eric's going to cover you just fine.
Reason she went to Green Bay too.
That's the only reason. Man. That's what I heard.
By the way, I'd like to point out to your point, Jimmy, that's valid because when like a move of a coach or a player, when that happens, you see some of these fans actually finding our stuff. Like a good example, and I hate to belabor the Mickey Purdue thing, but I see the numbers. Like when she transferred, Kyle did this huge like feature story on her last year, and they found it. And the Arizona folks, they found it. Same thing is true with when Danielle Robinson left for North Texas. By the way, I'd like to point out one thing. Speaking of Danielle Robinson, usually when a coach leaves, I usually like send them a text or a DM, wishing them luck. And I've done that at least a half a dozen times. The only person who ever responded to me, Danielle Robinson.
Dude, even Gates didn't respond to you?
He didn't. I know. Well, yeah, no, he did not. Yeah. Sonny didn't either. I was a little disappointed about that one.
Sonny responded to me, if that helps.
I just wanted to point out real quick on Jimmy and Matt's point about the kind of you guys helping to like elevate the league. I always felt, and I don't know if anyone has any insight to this or any can like steer me straight on this story, but in my head, one of the reasons the Horizon League is like HQ started their own podcast was a little bit in response to this podcast. I thought, because this was really like the only. You don't think so? I mean, that was just always my like conspiracy theory.
My ego would say yes, that's what happened, but no.
Well, I only say that because there was no centralized way to get like Horizon League coverage. You if you wanted to know about Oakland or Detroit, you can go follow Tony Paul. If you wanted to know about NKU, you could go follow some of the writers for the Enquirer, the Northerner. But like this was really the only place where you could get centralized coverage, and I felt that it was. I'll say this: it was either had to do with you guys, or it was a really big coincidence that right when this show started
I want to say that was kind of a coincidence.
Hey Bob, I 1000% disagree. I think Kyle's spot on here because in addition to seeing the work that you're doing, it also once in a while, you know this about yourself. You need to be reined in a little bit. They need to control the narrative a little bit. If Bob's out there rambling on something.
And you guys know what happened last year? They got rid of that podcast and they sponsored our preview podcast.
Nice.
That's what happened.
Well, and one thing I can definitely say for anybody that's doing content of any sort, whether you're writing an article, whether you're creating podcast, whether you're Matt, this is called the give and go, not the pick and roll. Thank you. The branding is spot on.
I had the wrong basketball reference. I apologize.
I know. I tease. I take it all in stride. But one thing, I think like a Horizon League, when you talk about them giving up their podcast, that's an institution looking at metrics and saying, okay, well, how many people actually listen to this thing? What makes the Horizon Roundtable so amazing, and anybody that's doing Horizon League content, like I say this all the time, I don't do the give and go pick and roll for Matt Dudek. I do it for me. I do it because it's my way to express my love for Green Bay basketball. I'll just keep doing it. It puts you out there. Sometimes you just say something stupid, act stupid, whatever. I think like their podcast didn't have the staying power because they're going to look at it and say, oh, well, 200 people listen. It's not worth it. It's not a project that comes from the heart for them. Like that's where this is right, wrong, or otherwise. It's far superior than what anybody else is doing, because almost anybody else would look at it and say, oh, I need to get a certain amount of money or a certain amount of clicks or a certain amount of likes. And it's not about that. It's just about doing what you love and being part of it.
It's a labor of love.
And that's Jim with the give and go.
And one other thing, Jim, and this is actually something you and I talked about when we were in Indy. There are certain segments.
I was drinking. I don't recall.
I could tell. But you had mentioned
that beer was really
this
good there, though, that they had. I forget what it was called, the Horizon Lager thing. I had about 70 of those during the men's games. Holy cow!
Yeah, that's why I avoided you during the men's games.
Just point of order, if we can go back to when I got Tony Paul to think Rick Pitino was coming to.
Oh Jesus, not that. But to your point, the point you made a point to me during the tournament, and this was about us actually kind of filling in the gaps for certain markets that basically have abandoned some of these teams. Cleveland is a perfect example of this.
I think Cleveland's the best example of it.
Cleveland is the best example of it. Because this is an area, this is a region that just, they leg hump the Browns to no end. And everywhere else just kind of...
The Shador Sanders talk is going to be excruciating.
They're going to spend a lot of time talking about a guy who's going to be in the CFL this year. But no, that's exactly valid. But that's a perfect example of that. I mean, this entire landscape would rather spend, hours on end arguing about a guy who got picked in the 5th round, than literally anything else. And that's where we kind of fill the void. I don't know why that happened, but it happened. And slowly but surely the same thing is happening in Indianapolis too. Because if you look at Indianapolis with IU Indy, they don't get jack for coverage unless, Greg Doyle only jumps in when, the Horizon League wants them to do some PR shit.
Their bus fire was covered for like 30 seconds.
On fire, yeah.
Oh, and the bus catches on fire. Yeah, that too.
Also, don't forget the time that they only had 5 players. That got some coverage too. But
yeah, and who covered that? Who covered that, Matt? Us.
I believe
we had all 5 of those fuckers on.
Hey, Matt, that was 5 players, but 4 pairs of shoes. Okay, and you guys had that every detail of it.
We did indeed. We absolutely did, and they did. By the way, at least 2 of them made fun of me using Skype, which, by the way, is gone now.
So. I think Horizon Boy thinks it all goes back to what Jimmy was saying earlier. I think it's that you recognize the accessibility that was available in this league, and the Horizon Roundtable, they realized, how special that is in this league, and put people into roles where they could use that accessibility in underserved markets. And I think one of my favorite parts of watching the roundtable has been seeing the journalists that you've put in place and seeing that kind of be a launching pad to different points in their careers. Like I'm thinking of like Nick Lorenzen or Alec, or what he's doing with John Carroll now, or even Griffin Beers. Like it's fun to see how you've used that accessibility that you found and then put people in a position where they can really use that to benefit their futures.
I think that's important. I've always thought that was important. Let's face it. This originally started out as, me and Jimmy talking out of our asses.
Yeah.
Me and Jimmy talking out of our asses. But the transition, once we transitioned to the website, we had to start doing other things. I felt like we needed to start doing other things and start thinking about, oh, hey, maybe we should start utilizing the fact that there are severely underserved markets here, and maybe we should be looking at that. And not even just them. I mean, we're looking at, places that have plenty of coverage, and we still got that now. So, I really need Isaac Wendell to stay where he is because the Purdue Fort Wayne writer job has been a rotating thing. I'd like to keep him around a while. But to your point, I do recognize also that at a certain point in time, some of these guys, people are going to move on, and that's what happens. I mean, all of you moved on, so.
Yeah, I look at the Horizon Roundtable as a really important deal because, like in Milwaukee, when I was a student, I was the sports editor of the UWM Post. The UWM Post was the third largest newspaper in the city of Milwaukee. We had 12,000 circulation throughout the east side and downtown. It was a weekly paper. It was also very profitable. Like, I paid for like half of my school by like being the sports editor at that paper. And a few years after I was gone, it went out of print, and the UWM Post exists as a website, but it doesn't have the cachet anymore, and it doesn't have the work. And one of our journalism professors tried to start a separate deal, but I honestly hate the idea of her being a guiding. She's a terrible guiding voice for student journalists, considering she's most famous.
She'd get along with that 80-year-old who's advising the Calder at Cleveland State now.
Well, what she's most famous for is writing a feature story for the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel on the Milwaukee chief of police, and at the same time entering an affair with the same police chief. Jim probably remembers this. Like, she's still a professor at UWM in the journalism department. So like the fact that she's like trying to like teach these kids about journalism ethics is fucking hilarious. But
it's funny. To your point,
the fact of the matter is, like, if I'm, when kids will come to me because they'll dig up and they'll find that, like, they'll find my name because my name's all over this place. They will come to me and they'll be like, how do I get into it? And I'll try and point them towards your direction because I think that it works. I mean, I think Danny Zielinski did a little bit of writing for the Roundtable at some point.
He did not.
And didn't he?
No.
He did something, or maybe he was just doing it for me. It was right before. It would have been for the Roundtable if the website had existed at that point.
Okay.
But like,
I don't remember. Yeah, because isn't he doing like mid-major basketball? That whole site now.
He runs mid-major basketball, and like that's a growing site.
It is. It is actually. I know there's at least one UWM writer that I wanted to get in. That obviously he's not. He's still doing that now.
Since and most of us go pretty far back with like our programs at all, and it's been a long time since Kyle Welliston gave up the mid-majority. And I'm
convinced that Kyle Wilson thought I was a goofus. So,
well, Kyle Wilson's just kind of generally an antisocial guy. He did not like having a lot of that. Like, he didn't like getting his flowers from, as the kids say today. Like, he didn't like getting his flowers for building that website. And the going to 100 mid-major basketball games in 100 days and sleeping in his car and stuff like that was an incredible, an incredible run, and we've been missing that ever since, like, and I do feel like the Horizon Roundtable in how we've done it from the humble beginnings of, as you say, you and I talking out of our ass into microphones. To what it is today. I mean, anybody who's a fan of the Horizon League, you're running and checking the transfer tracker every day.
Yes, you are.
You are.
You're doing it more this year than you were doing it last year. It's insane.
We've got a huge Panther fan who he and I have talked about doing a podcast for like 15 years, and he's. If you think I'm knowledgeable about Panther basketball, he knows so much more than I do. And we always would talk about how like the Horizon League deserves a third team, an all conference third team. It was right around the time like Oakland jumped into the league because we're like, we kind of feel like there's enough teams now. We should have an all league third team.
And by the way, I think it's funny you mentioned that because I think we just I think it was 2019 when you and I just decided one episode, screw it, we're going to do a third team.
And now they have it. You know, like, but that's something that the Horizon Roundtable did first.
Yeah,
was we created that all conference third team, and then the Horizon League realized that was a smart idea, and then followed the back on it. I do think that the reason that the Horizon League tournament went to Indy was because a lot of us just trashed Detroit from the get-go, even though I would say that like the experience in Detroit was pretty great compared to the experience in Indy so far.
Is this the part we're going to talk about the tournament format now?
Well, hey, Matt and I used to argue every year about that, right? Like, and it was always like me and my people and him and his people, and we would basically have like a Jets and Sharks thing on Twitter. And
I know. And I was in the middle of that shit. Thank you guys for that.
I mean, I'm we might as well talk about it. I'm to the point where I understand that like the Horizon League is not going to go back to the campus sites thing. So as much as I would prefer that to happen, I'm going to recognize that it's not. And I think that what the Horizon League specifically needs to do to anybody who, if Julie Rolach is listening to this podcast, what I would
Julie Rolach, who by the way was a guest on episode 200, I might add.
I would like to point out
way better than the guest on 300.
Yeah, seriously. This podcast's gone off a cliff, man. But like, we should.
I'm sorry. By the way, if you are all still listening right now, you knew what was going to happen. I've been warning about this for 3 weeks now. Maybe that's why John Parker didn't show up today.
I talked about it with Sarow, and I talked about it too.
Yeah.
Like right around the time of the conference tournaments. Like, if we're going to do a destination tournament, it is time. It is long since time to commit to that.
Yeah.
And even if we're to the point where like, okay, we're staying with ESPN, which is something that I also think the Horizon League should explore leaving. Because I think the Horizon, and I won't talk about that at the moment, but like, for the moment, we are in a deal with ESPN. So they have locked us into the Tuesday night championship game. A Horizon League tournament that would go Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday.
Yes.
Would have a lot better attendance in Indianapolis for the entire tournament. Also, there is a benefit of having the first two rounds on Saturday, Sunday, in that you're basically making it so everybody's going to at least experience it. Because even the people who will go home after their team loses will still get the experience of the conference tournament on Saturday, Sunday. So
here is the thing with that, because I agree with you. I do agree with you, because this is what the MAC has been doing for like 20 some odd years. Yeah. Sure.
Well, the MAC goes Wednesday to Saturday though, which is a little bit different. I agree with what James said as far as the days.
I'm assuming that we are locked into the Tuesday night.
I think at the same time, though, you kind of want the part of the tournament where the most people are going to be there to happen on the weekend. I don't think that's actually a bad setup.
Well,
no, it's not.
Also, if you want to have the most amount of people at the tournament, we also know what the real answer to that question is. But again,
hold on. Jim,
we're not going there.
Jim, no, you're making a great point. I want you to continue, but I just want to weigh this in because I usually am just fighting with you on Twitter about it. I never get to say it out loud. Is when we talk about most people, Indy or anywhere else we go, even on a Saturday or a Sunday, is going to put 4,000 people in there, right? 4,000 or 5,000, we'll say. Even with everybody paying full price, which we know isn't going to be the case, but like that amount versus whatever ESPN's paying us, plus the eyes on a Tuesday when nothing else was happening, there's more eyes on the Horizon League on a Tuesday night.
Sure.
I think also to your other point, I think if you get people to get in here on a Saturday and Sunday, there's going to be a greater chance of them hanging around on that Monday and Tuesday. They're going to be able to block out that 4 days at the very least.
And that's the real benefit is that like,
yeah.
So, I mean, we are the people who are on this podcast, right? So
yeah.
like of the fans of Horizon League basketball, the group that is in this Zoom call right now is on the list of the top 25 across the entire conference of like fans who are emotionally invested in the programs, or at least the ones that are known, you know.
That's
so
fair.
if we are some of the most committed fans, and the moment I lose to Oakland, I'm canceling my hotel in Indy. What does that say if we can't, you know, we lose to Oakland in the second round at the in the campus sites at home.
Yeah.
We lose that game.
Mm-hmm.
There's no reason for me to then go to Indianapolis. But I will also say that if that was a Saturday through Tuesday tournament,
yeah,
and I was not, you know, like recovering from getting my kidney cut out of me, you know, I probably would have been there from Saturday through Tuesday. In fact, probably Saturday through Wednesday, because who wants to drive, you know, several hours?
Oh, you do not. I stopped doing that a long time. I stopped doing that last year.
I did it last year after we lost to Oakland in the championship game, and that was it was actually a really nice drive. Because a bunch of us got to chat about how we want to make the program better and how we can do that without.
Incidentally, I'm sorry, I cut off. Like I actually had to leave early last year, but you all know why that was the case.
Yeah,
Jimmy, you're asking off work for 3 days. You're booking. Well, I mean, obviously, if it's a weekend, maybe you're not, but you're still planning on being there for 3 days. If the whole tournament's in one spot, you know, especially when I was covering NKU, you know, we were making it to the championship game or close just about every year, except that 1 year Cleveland State 8th seed took us down, but whatever. Yep. But anyway, yeah, you're booking your hotel for multiple days. Like, it's very unlikely. I kind of agree with you on that. It's very unlikely you're just going to say, you know what, F this. I'm going to just eat the loss on my hotel room and the other tickets I pre-bought and all that kind of stuff.
I think it also creates a little bit of social proof. Like, nobody wants to be the one weirdo down there, but when there's 500 or 1,000 other weirdos down there watching, you're like, all right, I'm going to drink some of that. I'm going to drink some of that delicious Horizon League lager and have a good time out of it. And
there you go.
I think to the point of like starting on Saturday, you build momentum through the tournament versus the start and stop nature of it's Tuesday, it's Thursday, it's here, it's there, it's everywhere, but it's nowhere. And yeah, definitely.
And this isn't new. I mean, this is what they did. I think they did this in Detroit at least once.
Yeah.
During that run.
I think they're also probably, I mean, I don't know. You guys have probably talked about this ad nauseum, but my own perspective on it was like Horizon League got a little scared because there was that weird stretch where like the 1 seed never even made it to the championship, like however many years in a row. And so they were my perspective on it was they were trying to make it as easy as possible for one of the top 4 teams to be that would be the best representation on a national stage in the tournament to get to the tournament. That's kind of the way I looked at it. But yeah, I don't know. You guys go ahead. Sorry.
Well, moving forward though, Kyle, I think that, you know, in the revenue sharing world and the name, image, and likeness world, some of the programs are going to do this a lot better than others. And that's going to protect the best team regardless of the format, because we saw last year, Championship Tuesday, the 2 most expensive rosters faced off from at least what I understand in the men's league. And so from a standpoint of the new world of basketball that we're operating in, this thing could be on the moon on a Wednesday. And I think the best teams that understand how to manipulate their roster with the financial component that's out there are going to have a way better chance than needing a home game on a Tuesday or something.
No, that's a really good point. That's why you get Yankees Dodgers in the World Series or whatever. I get where you're coming from, obviously.
This year's game could have been in Pittsburgh, and I don't think RMU fans would have shown up. So, you know, like, it is what it is sometimes.
God damn it, Matt. We just finally got Capella to unblock us.
Hey, Matt, somehow they sold out that quarterfinal game, and that's on the heels of them having like 1,500 people a game, like for the last 3 home games, all on the weekend. 2 of them were against Milwaukee, and I think somebody else that's good. One was against Green Bay, so I understand people not going to that this year. But
I'm saying,
yeah,
like,
they didn't have any people, and then finally at the very end, they sold out their building for the first time. It's like, where the fuck were you people? You've had an awesome
that's what I'm saying.
team.
That's why I said if the game had been in Pittsburgh, not in Moon Township, if they would have had to have gone, 15 minutes, I don't think that'd have shown.
It's Matt. It's
like I went for a long time thinking RMU didn't have that many fans, and all of a sudden we start arguing about the conference tournament format and things like that. And there was like 80,000 that just come out of the woodwork to dogpile, especially Matt, but me too.
Yeah, it seems to happen every year too.
And hopefully by getting the tournament and throwing a scare into Alabama, they've hooked some kids, because
they need some.
That's how you get people, right? Getting to the tournament, having some success in the tournament. Not everybody can go to the Sweet 16, but being able to get a win. I mean, obviously, like, the whole country knew who Jack Golke was last year.
Yeah. And I mean, NKU exploded when we made it to our first tournament, and almost. I always say almost beat UK because I'm usually talking to NKU fans, and we all see it that way. But obviously, I'll say gave Kentucky a good game when I'm around you guys. But we lost by 9, and it was like that was the
Houston game was pretty good too.
Yeah,
that Houston game was really good.
Yeah, and I agree with you guys. Like that's that's how you get people to watch. Winning begets fandom.
It does.
So then maybe the conversation should switch to in the era of the NIL, when we as a conference do not have a lot of money. In fact, we have very little for most of the conference. How do we as a conference stay afloat in trying to keep our relevance on the national stage?
I think that's a good question.
It's going to be very difficult.
I think we're going to see these teams continue to compete, though, because they're playing the game too. They're starting to figure out how to get money. I see it at least with Oakland. I see other teams like it's going to happen. They might just be a year or two behind, but I don't think any of these Power Fives that are buying teams essentially. I don't think that they were that much more impressive. On this side, we watched Trey Townsend go off to Arizona, last summer.
Yeah,
good for him. Yeah. Not mad at him at all. Trey was he was Horizon League Player of the Year. He was a nice piece for Arizona, but it wasn't a great Arizona team. He got, I think, one more round in the tournament out of it, than he had at Oakland. Like, those are things that the smart teams are going to be able to sell, though. If you leave our team and go somewhere else to get your bag, that might be a little bit more. How are you hurting your future? Oakland has turned so many players in Europe. Some of these guys that were not even great Horizon League players are still playing pro in Europe on the backs of that, So watching Alan McCabe leave, going off to Arizona State, what's that going to look for him on the other end of it? And how do these teams use that to sell people to stay here? Because at some point, getting a bag for 1 year versus going pro and playing 5 years in Europe, what is the difference? And I think that's what we're going to see.
That's very similar to what our coaching staff's pitch has been.
I think the other thing too is, and this is we're kind of at the point where it wasn't something. I think this is something we made a bigger deal about at the beginning of this whole transfer portal era, before there was the bag to be had, before NIL even existed, where you had players who were staying, 2 years max, and then they went off to the transfer portal, and then we felt some type of way about it. At this point in time, I've kind of evolved on this one, because you look at kind of the players who are going, some of the players that are going out. Good example, Gabe Dines. Now, Gabe Dines, and when Jared Calhoun was here, he's flat out said that Gabe Dines is probably going to be that player who's going to be here for a couple years, and then he's going to go off in the portal, and lo and behold, he's hanging out at USC with Marion Dickerson. So I think this is, if at this moment in time, I think if you get a player who's here for a couple of years, I consider that a bonus at this point. At the same time,
yeah.
you then also have that given that limited amount of time you're going to be there, you're going to have coaches who are going to be looking at what is going where they're going to be looking at the numbers to see what players are going to be able to fit into the system once player A leaves. And this is something that we've seen consistently with Youngstown State. This is something that we've seen elsewhere. This last year with Robert Morris.
Do you guys know how a city like Charlotte is able to pay certain players as much money as they do when like the city of New York also is able to pay in the NBA their players as much as they do? Those leagues have like revenue sharing programs and stuff.
Yeah.
And I always wonder if that's sort of where you're like, obviously I don't know how far down the list things go, but I think as this stuff starts to evolve, we might start seeing players like that go to NKU, sign a 2-year contract, and then if they want to hit the portal and Kentucky wants them, there's a buyout like with a coach maybe, and that's how some of these programs like make up that gap. Maybe they get folded into like the extended universe. Like the SEC can't just play SEC teams all the time, right? So if they want to play mid majors, they already do buy games. Why not? They might make revenue sharing deals with smaller conferences. I don't know.
I agree with that. I've been saying for quite a while that's where the logical endpoint of all this is kind of a full professionalization of the whole thing with revenue sharing and maybe even a salary cap. Well, they're going to have the cap, I guess, with the House settlement, but and having multi-year contracts and things like that. I think, and that's fine. Like fans and coaches want a little bit of certainty. Players want to get paid. I think there's a way to work that out for both sides, but certainly isn't what we have right now.
No, it's Wild Wild West.
Yeah. No, I think the contract thing's perfect because it offers players protection too, right? Like, Kyle Kuzma signs a shitty contract. The Wizards can't just cut the guy without, they have to trade him to the Bucks and make it now Jimmy's problem.
God damn it.
Hey, how are you liking the Haslam ownership over there, Jimmy?
I knew it was going to be trash the moment it happened, and I've been vindicated in that belief. Like garbage fucking human that guy is.
All right, Bob. Hold on.
You know what? As it relates to like contracts and things, right now, if you think about it, it's just a different mechanism that's attracting players. Like we just have to accept that as Horizon League fans, we're never going to compete to retain the very best players in the country. We might periodically get them because we found them, developed them, whatever the case may be. But 20 years ago, 10 years ago, is who had a better practice gym or who had a better dorm. Then it was, who was doing cost of living and how much was cost of living compared to, one market versus another. So like what this is really just about in my mind is it apparently takes about $500,000, give or take, to field a really competitive Horizon League men's basketball team. And you just got to, first of all, be able to have your program be in that range and then, deploy those assets in a meaningful way. And just understanding like, hey, whether these guys move on, move up, whether they get paid a bigger bag here or they stay, you just got to always have your $500,000 or whatever it takes to be competitive in this world, because we have not established ourselves as, the kind of league that could retain players over a long term. So why today would we think that's going to be different when the thing that is losing players is actual money to the player and not just some pretty building they get to hang out in all the time? So that's kind of where I stand. Just always have your money ready to go and just understand that it's a transient world, but it doesn't have to be a terrible world that we watch.
And Jim, you make a great point. And I'm going to try to rein this in and help Bob here. I'm going to play co-host since, his couldn't show up today. And like 10 years ago when this podcast was just maybe kind of a bad idea for Jimmy and Bob, 300 episodes ago.
What do you mean was a bad idea?
Yeah, right. Was, the things that we're talking about now never would have been on the cusp. Like no one would have thought that these were conversations. So Bob, to try to help you wrap this, because otherwise we know that we can sit here and bullshit about
Horizon of course we are
with this group of people forever. But
absolutely.
If anyone's still listening, Godspeed to them. But like let's so in the next 300 episodes, what ridiculous or crazy thing do you think we'll be talking about 300 episodes from now? Make that the final topic, because I'd love to hear everybody's thoughts and in one crazy off the wall. There's no wrong answers. Like 300 episodes from now, what are we talking about when we get back together and go, we made it to 6?
Golden State makes it to the A10, and I have to shut down the podcast.
I think we're all kicking around Chicago State because they keep dragging down the conference.
Oh, I'm sorry. We haven't even talked about it. We didn't even talk about the teams that came and went. I mean, Valpo's gone, UIC's gone, NIU's coming back. And
we were talking about the journalism coverage, and I was thinking, like, you mentioned how IU Indy has like no coverage, and I thought I was recalling the time, when Butler was in the league and was like, well, David Woods is really good beat writer. I wish every team had a
that
good
was
beat
before
writer
us,
like
man.
him.
That was before us.
I mean, that was before the round table, but
that was way before the round table.
So, Jimmy, what's your answer?
When UIC left, and even thinking about like NIU, like that's a hell of a way to get fired from a website, right? you're an NIU writer covering them for Hustle Belt or whoever else. All of a sudden they're out of the conference. Oh, see you later, guy.
Hey, we need the help, so come on down.
I'm gonna say, Jimmy, what's your crazy idea? 300 episodes from now, what's different?
I don't know what's going to be very different from now. I don't think membership's going to be exactly the same. I think so let's see, with 300 episodes from now, whether we've been around for 12 years.
Yeah.
So we're talking about like 2037. I think.
Oh, you guys are really getting real close to Bob's retirement age, and do you guys really think? Am I really going to be doing this for? Yeah. I mean, seriously, am I really going to be doing this for 12 more years?
Probably.
Really?
Yes.
I don't really believe that.
Jordan's still out there if you're interested, man.
Oh no.
I think the real seismic shift is going to be in 2032 when the NCAA's television deal with CBS, True TV, TNT, and all that is up, because I think that's when the high majors are. I think they're lying in wait for that moment to do the breakaway from the NCAA.
Yeah.
I think what's the drastic thing we're talking about is what this thing that we all love so much, what's it going to look like? Because at the end of the day, there's still going to be haves and have-nots, and we're still the have-nots. And I don't foresee any of us figuring out how to become a have in that time.
Yeah.
Right.
No.
Yeah. My thought was kind of similar to what you're saying, Jimmy, is just that, I think by the next 300 episodes, we might even be talking about a national championship because the power conference schools have all fucked off and done their own thing. So
that's true.
Yeah,
they're all out in Vegas doing the college basketball crown or whatever stupid shit they were doing.
You talk about haves and have-nots, and it's just getting to the point where you kind of see it that way, where I'm not the first person to bring this up, certainly, but there is a point where we could be talking about that we're not in whatever the top division is because all the haves have gone off and done their own thing. And I think.
And here's the other thing. I think that with how NIL is working and how it's. So I've talked to a couple people that I know at a Big 12 school. They do not believe, and they are in basketball. They are a very strong program. They do not believe that they do not believe that the school that they are at has the ability to stick around and be a successful program after 5 to 10 years from now. And
almost gave it away. I think I know who you're talking
about.
Well,
I know, but it's.
Jimmy, he put it on a podcast. Their AD put that on a podcast, so you could say it out loud.
Oh, okay. Jamie
Pollard,
talked
right?
about it. Jamie talked about
Pollard.
it on a podcast. Oh, okay.
Yeah,
well,
you can find it. He was talking about how they're basically funding it from the reserves until their reserves run out.
Yeah, I mean, it's Iowa State. There's a shit ton of Milwaukee connections at Iowa State, just so you know, and Jimmy Pollard would be one of them. We're in this, we're in this time where there's even haves that are going to have issues, and a lot of issues. I mean, the way that it's breaking out, like in our state, Madison is going, Madison, which in this state is just about everything to these people as far as like college athletics. They are going to have a pain in the ass. It's going to be a pain in the ass for them to stay competitive in basketball. And they've been to a couple Final Fours in the last 10 years. I mean, you can already see it with their football program. Like their football program is having a difficult time keeping up with Michigan and Ohio State. Now we're getting to this point where there is going to be a haves and we have the haves and we have the have-nots, and they're going to be some programs that are just going to have way more than everybody else.
Well, you mentioned the programs that they're trying to keep up with, Jimmy. Has anyone offered like maybe they just need to cheat? That seems to work well for those other schools.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely
they're not applying themselves.
Been helpful, but like I look at you look at a school like Iowa State. How do they keep it going?
Dude, I figured it out. I figured it out.
Yeah.
Horizon League crypto rug pool. That's how we generate money.
Dude, I'm obviously like I'm talking to all the people around here about how we can figure out how to crowdfund NIL, and I keep bringing up crypto scam. Like we
got to brainstorm a great meme coin for that.
I've got
Kyle. We have it.
There you go,
Kyle. It's the shit coin for your shit league. There you go.
Yes.
Why don't we could do a thing where we just like come up with a meme coin and then like divide all the proceeds equally to the NIL funds of each school.
I think at that point I'm just taking the money. I'm sorry.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I mean, there are scams for a reason, Jimmy.
I got student loans coming due here soon, so
Yeah.
Well,
all right. So here's my last question, because I gotta trying to rein this in here for you here, Bob.
Yeah, sorry.
No. This is all good stuff. Horizon Boy, within the next 300 episodes, how does sports gambling change?
Oh.
I think you can tie it into how we succeed. I think having those ESPN deals and having people look at the Horizon League for two different reasons than they did a decade ago. One of them, I think, would be gambling. I think people are going to be watching if they've got an incentive to. And then the other one is, I think if you're, say a high major fan, maybe you would be more inclined to be following the Horizon League to look at who you want to be on your team in the future. So I think that the league should embrace gambling. I think we're going to see some more of that over the next couple of years, kind of the trickle down from the networks to then the high majors to now mid majors. But I also think that, they should embrace being able to be accessible for fans that are coming for different reasons than rooting for that program and being a diehard fan.
Well, I can tell you currently the Horizon League does not embrace it, because that was one thing we specifically were not able to discuss on the preview podcast. If you go back, we never discuss odds, we never discuss anything in that, and that was a directive from the Horizon League, which is totally okay. I totally get it, but like the Horizon League has not embraced it yet. But I agree with you, the Horizon Boy, that I think that's something that going forward that they can't promote it, but there might be a way to bring it into the fold.
And I've talked to sports marketing. One thing that I hear is that a lot of leagues are selling their information, their data to different websites in order, their analytics, and talk about ways to get a shared NIL fund or something like that. Why not embrace sharing that kind of analytical data if it could bring in direct money from that kind of website? And two, if it brings more fans in the next, if it brings fans to have them watching for that reason.
All right. So I'm going to wrap this up.
Hey, Bob, real quick, before you wrap up, can I just
add one thing too?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I'll go quick. So 2037, I'm going to be talking about two things. Number one thing I'm going to be talking about, Matt Dudek is universally hated or known for hating all the teams. And Horizon Boy is universally loved, and yet he hates half the teams every night, and we're still not going to be able to figure out why that is. And number two, 12 years from now, we're going to be looking back and going, Green Bay was either the smartest program in the league, hiring a media person to be their head coach, or you guys are going to be laughing because it is so monumentally stupid, it will still be funny 12 years from now. That's all I got. That is my Horizon Roundtable give and go.
All right, so I'm going to wrap this up. So
there's one more guy had something.
Yeah, my prediction is either Detroit Mercy is not D1 or they no longer exist as a university. And I would wager to bet both.
Wow. Okay.
Goddamn, dude.
No, then we'll really need Chicago State then.
He's not wrong.
Yeah.
Well, Chicago State's not going to be a university before UDM does.
Yeah, you could get into a whole thing. There's a lot of schools that are kind of in that similar boat, my own included.
Yeah. So, all right. So I'm going to wrap this up. So to your point, Horizon Boy, about the gambling angle, I've seen the pluses and the minuses of that one. You will notice the Horizon Roundtable does not I've kind of half-assed kind of the embracing of that. So maybe I'll change my mind in the next 12 years. Of course, Jesus, maybe I'll keel over and die in the next 12 years. I don't know. But
I didn't necessarily think you should. It's really annoying when people, all they talk about is how much they won or lost and that kind of stuff.
You should see you should see the DMs, man.
You should try working in my industry, friends.
Yeah. All right. So, guys, that's going to wrap it up. You know what? This is actually an hour less than I thought it was going to be.
All right.
We just can't stay awake long enough to do another hour anymore.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, thank you guys for joining us. It was a great conversation. Love talking to you guys. I guess I'll have to give John the cliff notes on this version. I'm not sure when the next episode is going to be because I'm going to take a break. Okay?
No. John needs to listen to every minute of this podcast, and he needs to write you an essay on it. That's how I think that should go.
Good luck with that.
Yeah. What's the person in the courtroom? What do? They type it all out? That's what John.
The court reporter. Yes.
There you go.
Stenography.
Yes. Yeah. That I couldn't think of the word. It's Sunday, dude. Get off my back.
All right. So that's gonna wrap it up. HorizonTheRoundtable.com. That's where all of our articles and all of our podcast episodes, the other 299. It's probably more than 299 because we've got a bunch of fucking bonus episodes. But you can pull us up wherever podcasts are available, and you can pull us up on your Amazon or Google devices. So until next time, I'm sure it'll be sometime in the summer. I don't know. But until then, for the 300th time, thank you all for listening.
I guess I didn't swag enough. Stupid fruity pebble chain. We bag enough. I guess I didn't swag enough. Stupid fruity pebble chain. We bag enough. Poppin' 10 model BG couldn't brag 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 enough. I guess I didn't swag enough. Stupid fruity pebble chain. We bag enough. I guess I didn't swag enough. Stupid fruity pebble chain. We bag enough. Poppin' 10 model BG couldn't brag 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 enough.
The hoes be like, go red. Yo, Swooty all in my swing, cause I'm getting all this bread. I'm swagged out, hella chippin' peas. I'm the swag champ, my belt is Hermes. Taking photos of my wop, but I don't give a damn. Give me an ounce plus the soda, now that's an Instagram. Olympic Jordan 7s, APC denim. Tried to lock my swag up, cause when I came through, I killed them.
I guess I didn't swag enough. Stupid fruity pebble chain. We bag enough. I guess I didn't swag enough. Stupid fruity pebble chain. We bag enough. Poppin' 10 model BG couldn't brag enough. Poppin' 10 model BG couldn't brag enough. Poppin' 10 model BG couldn't brag enough. Poppin' 10 model BG.
Yeah, bitch, I'm about to blow. Boom, I'm swagging off in the room. I'm super coolin' with your bitch with some J's coming out soon. I'm steady popping them tags like 5 days out the week. Front row, thick cash game like session, watch my feet. Blow that money shit like it's nothing. I'm 24 when I'm stunting. She 33 with a fat degree and she fucking around on her husband. I'm ballin', bitch, no bluffing. Cool crew, we winning in that 550. That's tinted from Superior to Kinsman.
I guess I didn't swag enough. Stupid fruity pebble chain. We bag enough. I guess guess I didn't swag enough. Stupid fruity pebble chain, we bagging up. Poppin' 10 model music and bragging 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 up.
I just left the airport, but I'm still fly. My flight was 4 hours, but I'm still high. Took a trip to see what it is before I buy it. You a lame and you will never understand this life. Different city every weekend. Casey Fitted reppin' Kinsman. New paint on the old school, every summer increase them inches. I hang with go-getters, all my niggas chasing digits. With a chick that never been to Cleveland, headed downtown for the weekend. Yeah.
I guess I didn't swag enough. Stupid fruity pebble chain, we bagging up. I guess I didn't swag enough. Stupid fruity pebble chain, we bagging up. Poppin' 10 model music and bragging 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 up.